Welcome to the Pollination Podcast. Here we discuss all things beekeeping and pollinators as a whole. From the latest research, to interviews, to answering your questions. Tune in and save the bees. Thank you for tuning in to the very first episode of the Pollination Podcast. For our very first episode, we're going to be interviewing a local beekeeper right here from Chipley, Florida. Our guest today is Ryan Cutts, a fifth-generational beekeeper. Okay, Ryan, so you are here to be our very first episode on the Pollination Podcast.
Hey, holla.
Yeah, this is definitely going to be fun, I hope. And I'm glad to have you to be the first person. It's nice, number one, you're close by, so I can kind of bring you in here, and it's a little bit easier. Kind of use you as a guinea pig for our first test episode, so if it doesn't turn out well, we'll do a second one later on.
Yeah, just bring me back for like episode 100 or something.
That's it. Yeah, you can. Yeah, we'll have that, like a centennial episode.
Yes, that's awesome, though. I'm glad you're doing this.
Yeah.
I'm excited for you.
Yeah, thank you. We'll have to see how it evolves over time. The only generational beekeepers that I know that's still operating like around here, that's commercially. I'm sure there's more.
There's like father-son. I don't know of anybody real close by that's like generational, like as far back as I am. Third generation. I know some grandkids down South Florida that their grandfathers started and they're still going. But yeah, so I'm a fifth generation. Wow. So it goes way back with me, and it's kind of just in my blood.
Wow, yeah, fifth. Okay, yeah, so I thought somebody had told me you were fifth. And I always had it stuck in my head you were like third generation. Mm-hmm. So 5 generations, that's significant.
Yeah.
Man, that's a long time.
Yeah, my great-great-grandfather got his first hive of bees in 1889. He was a Singer sewing machine salesman. He would like go door to door, and he had this guy. He was up around Montgomery, Alabama. He had this guy that couldn't pay his bill, and he went to collect, and the guy couldn't pay his bill, but he said, "Hey, I've got these beehives back here. Why don't you just take a couple of them?" So he did, and that was the beginning of it. And he just kind of, I think he kept some bees, but not like commercially. He just kind of did it in his backyard. And then my great-grandfather, his name was Paul Cutts. He started in Montgomery, and he was kind of like a jack of all trades. He kept bees. He had a couple hundred hives, I think. And he was a mechanic for like old school Model A's and stuff like that. And he's the one that moved to Chipley because he got he got set up with somebody down here, and they let him overwinter their bees down here. Huh. And he had some up in Alabama and some down here, and his bees weren't looking great in Alabama, and he was just expecting real bad things, but came down here and they were just exploding. Huh. And my granddaddy said he remembered that trip. He said, I feel like we stopped at every gas station to have a Coke on the way home because he was just so happy. And that's what they did back then, was stop and get a Coke.
Yeah.
But so yeah, they moved down here, and then my granddaddy, when he was in high school, started selling queens some, and built that business into like a pretty big thing during his life. He had like 2,200 hives or so for a while there, back in the 60s, 70s, and raised my dad on bees. And he eventually went bankrupt early 80s and went and worked for the state. When the tracheal mite came, my granddaddy's business was shaking bees and selling package bees into Canada. So he would shake bees all spring and haul tons of packages up into Canada every spring. And when the tracheal mites hit in the early 80s, they closed the border to Canada down, and it just completely ruined his whole business plan.
Lawrence Cutts.
Yes.
Yeah.
Lawrence
I definitely
Cutts.
wanted to hear more about him too, because he help like start the state bee inspector service here.
He was the no, he didn't start it, but once he went out of business, they closed down. The tracheal mites closed down the border, and he took out some loans trying to buy a bunch of honey supers. He was going to start trying to make honey instead, and he didn't have near enough supers for all his hives. So he and his two sons were both. One dad had graduated high school, I think, and my uncle Bobby was about to graduate high school, and they all three were about to go. They were about to ramp it up and go big in it, and it just all hit at the wrong time, and they shut those borders down. He had a bad honey year, and it just bankrupted him. And he told me years ago, but he was like, he was in severe depression, like just sweating it, trying to make it happen, trying to keep his business alive, and it just all fell apart. But at the same time, he was working his butt off to try to keep his bees healthy and happy, and he was working daylight to dark. And the state was calling him every day, trying to offer him this job, and he didn't know. My grandmama kept answering the phone. He wasn't ever there, and she was like, "They're trying to get you." But he didn't have time for it. Eventually, they got hooked up, of course, and he took that job and moved to Gainesville and was the state head inspector for 18 years, I think. So it worked out good,
Yeah.
Terrible thing ends up working out good for him, but he loved that job, man. He loved it.
Being the inspector there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's funny. I think your grandfather he was in charge of the bee inspector who taught me, Steve Beatty, that worked there. Yeah, he's the guy that taught me beekeeping and got me like really into all this. So that's pretty cool. Everybody, when I first moved here, that was one of the first names I heard was like, it was Cuts, and it was Lawrence Cuts.
Oh yeah, he was beekeeper famous, man.
Yeah, I recently, I actually got one of his old bee yards recently. There was a Mr. Cook. He's way over there. He said, I guess I just posted that on Facebook. No, I have another bee yard with one of his family members, Sam, and he introduced me over there. But he told me that your grandfather used to have hives back there, apparently a long time ago, I guess. And he said one day your grandfather came and took some of the hives out of there, and he thought he had gotten all the hives out of there because he never saw your grandfather again. I actually saw some old of his, I guess it's his bee pallets kind of off in the woods somewhere. They're pretty old and rotten looking. And Mr. Cook told me that he was out there like clearing the woods one day, or he had hired some people maybe to clear the woods. And he said the workers just came like screaming out of the woods, like running like crazy, throwing their shirts off and stuff. And he walked up and was like, "What's going on with these guys?" And it turns out there was a bunch of beehives still in the woods. I guess they were your grandfather's. He didn't take them all. And they were still alive. And this was apparently sometime later. They'd been sitting out there. And I guess these guys had like dropped a tree on one of the hives or something. So they got eaten up, and they were terrified. And Mr. Cook said he had like an old tractor, an old Massey Ferguson or something like that, And no veil, no real bee experience, I think, other than maybe what your grandfather had just shared with him, going back and forth. And he just put like a plow or something on the front of his tractor, and he said he just pushed the hives like deeper into the woods. So they may still be there, but I think that he cleared like a little area out there where they hunt, and I moved some hives there recently, a few months ago.
Just like on the edge of a big hayfield.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I guess it'd been a long time, and they missed it because they have like a beautiful garden over there. But yeah, there's just a lot of like little stories like that I've heard. Even before I got into beekeeping, really, I was like hearing his name, even when I was just kind of like dabbling. In it. So he's pretty well known. Everybody tells a story, and I guess it's good to ask you, but everybody tells a story like he came up with that beetle blaster trap too that we use. Is that true?
The better beetle blaster.
Yeah.
Nothing works faster. Yep, that was his. He hated beetles, dude. If he opened a hive up and it had 50 beetles on the lid, he would spend 5 minutes tracking down every beetle and squishing them with his finger. Like, he wasted so much time killing beetles, but he had a vengeance for them.
I know a guy like that. I know a guy who carried around a little blowtorch, and he would take the hive off and just blowtorch them down, the larvae especially. And I was like, man, that seems like overkill. He's like, I just kill 2,000 larvae, in a minute. And I'm like,
stinks.
Yeah, it does.
Granddaddy would say it smells like revenge.
Yeah, it's that's so horrible. That dead hive beetle smell is terrible.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, I'd always heard that and the bee inspector story, and that he was up there. And
so he did that. He inspected bees for 18 years, or was the head inspector, and he went all around the world, South America, Australia, all over the place, just helping other people. And he retired from that in like 2002, I think, and sold his place in Gainesville and moved back home. And that's when he started building the business that I'm running now. So I was there pretty much as he built it. I started helping him work bees, at 10 or 12, and at least in the honey house. I wasn't big on being in the bee yard, but I was in the honey house at a pretty young age. But
so your dad and your uncle, did they kind of take over from your grandfather, or did it?
Dad took his bees over for a while, and it just couldn't make it happen. And he got a lot better job offer. He ended up working for UPS for 34 years, and he's retired now and back to helping me. So it's nice to be back into like a family operation.
Yeah, I've seen him over there a couple times when I've come by.
Oh yeah, he's there all the time. He loves it.
Yeah, I told you I think one of the first years I tried to move some hives up to Georgia. I didn't have the flatbed truck I had now. I had like an old 2500, which that's what I've still got, in a utility trailer. And I think I had some hives on the back, or maybe it was dead owls or syrup buckets or something, but I didn't have the right ball on the truck. Mm-hmm. And when I was going up right before Dothan, I think, the trailer had come loose and bounced off in like this busy intersection. And it was like grinding and throwing sparks and everything. It was just hanging on by the chains. And I probably threw some syrup buckets in the road. I don't know. Not the first time. And I pulled over at a Dollar General, and I was trying to latch everything back together. And I think I had to walk a mile down the road or something. And like I found this like auto parts store and bought the right ball. But when I was trying to do all that, and and I'm frustrated and whatever, mumbling to myself, and I didn't know your dad at the time, but yeah, he just walked up and introduced himself. He's like, "Oh, hey, I'm a beekeeper, my name's Cuts," or whatever. And I was like, "Oh, okay, you must be Ryan's dad." And that's how I met him, which I was busy, and he didn't remember me. But I remember that because I was like, that was so weird. I'm in some random Dollar General parking lot in the middle of nowhere, and I was like, "Oh, your dad shows up."
Oh, yeah.
And, he was nice. He offered to help and everything, but I was beyond help at that point. I was so aggravated.
Been there.
Yeah, we had to. It's been a long learning curve for me. That's the downside, I guess, when you don't grow in it. It's like, man, I don't have, I don't have all that that experience. I guess when you have as a kid, it's like it's probably just muscle memory for you.
Oh yeah, it's what we do. Yeah. We still have some dramatic truck experiences.
Yeah, that's
trucks and bees.
Yeah,
it's like it's a curse.
Ours blew a head gasket recently, and it's been put some Blue Devil in it, and I'm just like, please, just give me like 2 more years out of this thing. I don't want to buy a new truck. It's like a mortgage payment.
Yeah,
and
for real,
it is. But yeah, when those trucks go down, and it shuts down your operation.
Oh yeah,
it's like the truck, trailer, and the Bobcat or a forklift, and you got to have it. And if you don't, you're not carrying a tote of syrup out to the bee yard.
No,
not this time of year. I'm certainly not hauling back 100-pound honey boxes or something. So now you're just doing it full time over there. You totally take it over?
Full time, baby. Yep.
Yeah.
Beekeeping. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I took that over in Granddaddy was he was getting older, and I went to University of Florida thinking I'm done with bees. And then I sat in the library over there for 2 years with my head stuck in a book, and I was like, I'm ready to keep some bees. I'm tired of being inside. I'm tired of computers. Uh-huh. So I came home and I worked for Granddaddy a couple more years after I got home from college, and he kind of just started backing out and letting me have more and more, and let me take it over and do what I want to with it, which I've made tons of mistakes, and but that's the way you learn.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, the most costly mistakes are the one I remember the most. I've made some this year. Unfortunately, I'm like, what did I do? But you just try to hold on there, and it's tough, man. Everybody told me when getting into it how hard beekeeping was, but I was probably a little overly proud that I could. I'm going to figure this out, no problem. I got this. I went to college. I'm going to have bees, and and you get out there, and it's just like, man, the bees just like shut you down. Like, they teach you some hard lessons.
Yeah, it all makes sense when you start adding stuff up on paper, and you've got this many hives of bees, and you're not accounting for how productive is every hive, and is every hive going to make it, and and then you put your boots on the ground. It's a different story. Which makes me respect you guys that are just starting out, especially trying to make money at it. Like, because I was just handed over a bunch of equipment and all kind of stuff, and I can't. I've been struggling to keep my head above water for some years, and it's a grind, dude.
Yeah,
just get out and hustle.
That's pretty much it. Yeah, it's like it's 7 days a week, and you never get a break, and it just kind of consumes you. But yeah, if you love it though, it's not. I mean, it's still hard work, but obviously you enjoy it if it's a passion. But that's what I tell people now. They're like, they kind of see me where I've gotten to in so many years, and then they're like, oh, well, I want to do that too and everything. And I'm like, it's not all peaches and roses. There's definitely a bad side to beekeeping. I mean, kiss your life goodbye for one, probably your knees and your back.
Yeah.
Pretty soon too,
and all of your money.
And all of your money. That's exactly right. Yeah, it's like you put $2 in a hive, you get $1 out maybe if you're lucky. And it's crazy. And people will be like, oh, well, you can average 30 to 60 pounds of honey per hive here. And I was like, if I was averaging that, I would be filthy rich. I'd be fine. I mean, I'll go like hive nothing. And then, okay, well, there's 10 pounds. Okay, well, there's 5 pounds.
Yeah.
Okay, well, my honey pump blew up, and there's 10 gallons on the honey house floor.
Yep.
I'm not shoveling that back up. The bees can have it back, I guess. Maybe I can re-harvest it. Yeah, there's just so many. It's tough, and I almost wish I had grown up in it just because I could have learned a lot of those lessons. I got the advantage of I got to work on the other apiaries,
right.
Work for beekeepers, and that's usually what I tell people who want to get into it if they're not like born in it or something and they want to come at it new like I did. I was like, go find another commercial beekeeper and work for him. A year at least, 3 years would be a lot better. 5 years would be great. And that I mean, honestly, you're kind of making all your mistakes on that other guy's dime. And hopefully not so bad that they fire you. But yeah, I mean, that's the best way to do it. And in my opinion, if you're starting fresh. And, not everybody wants to do that. And then I'm like, well, this may not be for you then, unless you've just got $1 million you want to drop into the business.
Yeah.
Which, you're going to burn through it all in a year or two anyways.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's tough. One thing I wanted to ask, because I thought was interesting, because like our main source of business is almond pollination, where we send them to California for a few weeks every year. But you don't do that.
Nope.
How come?
Well, my experience personally, if a lot of people listen to this, there will be tons of different experiences. But I've sent bees to California 3 times at least, maybe 4. And every time the bees just come back dying and dead, pretty much. I don't know if they're getting sprayed out there. And that's the other thing. I don't know what's going on with them out there. So I'm not against sending them to California, but if I do send them back again, I want to be able to leave as many as I send at home, just in case I lose. I haven't lost everything. Yeah. And I want to be able to go out there and shake hands with who's touching my bees. Yeah. So, I leave them home. I put them down close to the swamps and put them on tie-tie and just let them. They just explode on that tie-tie in February, March. It's awesome. I love working bees when they're just going crazy like that. Yeah. So I stay busy with them and I make nukes up and make a little bit of honey at it, and that's kind of how I make that money back. So if you're making like 150, I don't even know what California pollination's going for, but just say you're getting $150 gross payout. That's like a nuke. Yeah. So if I can pull one nuke off of that hive, I've made that income. Yeah. If I can sell it.
That makes sense, and the stress is definitely a lot lower, I would suspect, too.
Well, the stress is I don't get to bass fish during bedding season because all my bees are home when everybody else's are in California. I don't get to turkey hunt, but I get to be in my bees, and I know what's going on in them. Make sure they're healthy and keep up with them.
Yeah, I'm jealous. I don't have any tie-tie yards. I remember I've been around them, and I've seen them on tie-tie, and I remember like taking the lids off, and the honey would just run out the entrance from, where they had propylized the lid so much with all that honeycomb. And I was like, this is crazy. That was the first real honey flow I felt like I had ever seen. And I was like, this is like liquid gold. It's just dripping everywhere, pouring everywhere. Yeah. Almost to the point where you were sick opening the hives because you were covered in honey. Your gloves are ruined. Smokers covered. Yeah, exactly. Bees are all over you. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I have to get into that. Yeah, our bees just don't really do anything until, it's like March, late March or something here.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we're just leaving them on kind of our regular sort of wildflower flow, I guess, which it works. We have been lucky so far with our hives. They've come back pretty good.
Yeah. I've
Um,
seen bees come back just
yeah.
boiling over, full of brood and full of honey. And I just haven't had that experience personally.
This past year was
It's
pretty tough because they were having all the flooding and in California, and
a
I
lot
think
of
there were
bees
parts
coming
that were
back late.
snoring. Yeah, super late. Ours came back really late. We got paid really late. You
That's
know,
another thing.
yeah, that's it's hard. You're sitting there waiting on that check because I'm like, oh man, I haven't gotten a big check since I sold honey, in the summer or the fall, and I'm
Yeah.
like, that's a long time to hold on tight. And yeah, I almost wish I could get nukes early to market too. And maybe that's probably why people start calling me in like January. They're like, hey man, you got nukes
Yeah.
now or in February, and I'm like, my bees are gone, and the ones I can split, I didn't send to California because they're weak, so I can't split them until March. So, oh, that's good then. So those people can just come to you and
Yeah.
they'll.
I get a couple of big customers. I send big orders into like I think I've got one guy in Tennessee and a guy in I don't know, North Carolina or somewhere like that. But I have people come from up a little bit further north. I can get them nukes a couple weeks earlier than they can get them around where they are. So
Yeah.
they're taking them to their business, and most of these people are kind of like Mr. Elmore, just supplies, and they sell nukes in the spring. So
So you just wholesale the nukes to these guys and they resell them.
yeah,
We thought about doing that this year too because we ran into a bind. We kind of overproduced what we were selling locally,
Yeah.
and at a retail price. And I was like, oh, we got stuck with like hundreds of nukes that, in a way, I'm kind of glad because we started making queens off of them and it's kept my numbers up,
Right.
this year. So it's worked out, but I sure would have loved to have sold another 300 nukes,
Yeah.
already and had that in my bank account. So I was a little stubborn on trying to hold down that I didn't want to negotiate lower prices, and I was like, I'll be able to sell them. But I mean, we wholesale honey, so I'm like, well, maybe there's just you get to a certain scale that wholesaling just has to happen.
Right. And I look at it like, so you're losing 20 or $30 per nuke wholesaling instead of retailing, but you're also answering to one person instead of 100 people.
Yeah,
And, and that one person usually knows what they're doing. So they're not calling you, asking you questions
yeah,
that people should probably know before they even get a hive of bees. But so I love talking bees, but when I'm trying to get work done
yeah.
and my phone's just ringing off the hook for people not knowing what they're doing with them, it makes things hard to get things done. So I can get a lot more done just wholesaling like that. I still retail a little bit, but
Yeah.
people close by. But
Well, that's probably good advice, yeah, for us too, because we ran into the same problem. Even though I'm doing it full time this year, even if I sold 100 nukes, it was probably to 100 different new
Yeah.
beekeepers,
absolutely,
and they all had questions, similar questions, and sometimes they had daily questions or hourly questions, and
and queens are the same way, especially if they come to pick up one queen and then sit there. And I'm not complaining. I love, again, talking bees, and I'm usually the cause for it, but you sell one queen and stand there and talk for 30 minutes, 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Have you made any money?
yeah,
So,
that's a really good point. Yeah, we've been having the same conversation on our side, and we try to kind of mitigate some of that, like find a compromise. That's when we had that open hive event recently.
Right.
We were trying to do that outdoor class, so I'm like, well, maybe I can still teach people, but do it in a group setting. I had heard that's what your grandfather did too. He used to
Yeah.
do these big courses.
He would do one every year. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was kind of actually one. At that, Mr. Cook is the one that told me that, and that's kind of what gave me the idea to do it for us too.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, yeah, okay, I still can help new beekeepers, beginners, but I can do it on my time when I can schedule it. And yeah, deal with 50 people at one time versus 50 people on every day, constantly. So yeah, there's got to be a compromise between educating people and sharing what we've learned, but managing the business and maybe having some little bit of a personal life
Right.
would be nice. I mean, we hardly
That
have
would
a
be
personal
nice.
life between the bees. Like, yeah, the beekeepers too. It's hard. And that was one thing I was going to ask too. Is like you've had a child recently, right? You and your
Yeah.
wife.
He just turned one last month.
Yeah. What's that like?
It's a change.
Yeah.
Change of lifestyle for sure. It's fun. It's going good. He's a cool little kid. Sleeps good, so we were lucky there.
Yeah, wow. So now you got to manage the family apiary, and you have basically a newborn, pretty much.
Yeah. Yep. Pretty much.
Wow, that's a lot. I can't even imagine. I can't imagine it. We've got a few animals, and already I'm like, I don't want to go feed my dog in the morning because I've been working bees all day, and I'm like, man, I can't imagine having like a little human I've got to take care of every day.
Yeah, you get home just beat down, tired, and then this little kid's running around trying to play, and you get to chase him everywhere. It's okay. It's fun though.
Yeah.
I'm having fun watching them. It won't last forever, so.
Yeah. Are you gonna put him in the bee yard?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, he's gonna be sixth generation.
That's why we had him.
Oh yeah, for work.
Yeah, we need some labor around here.
Yeah. That's a massive investment before you get a return on that. You put in 18 years.
Yeah, that's not why we had him. But I tell people, they ask, is he going to be a beekeeper? And I said, he doesn't have much of a choice for the first 18 years.
Yeah.
If he wants out when he's done. But while he's under my roof, he's a beekeeper.
Oh yeah. Was it kind of that way when you were growing up? Like, did you feel like to have that kind of responsibility or that pressure because you were sort of next in the line?
Not really. Honestly, Dad and Granddaddy were really good about not pushing me into it. I didn't. Dad had probably 50 hives, 50 to 100 hives when I was growing up. 8 to 10 or 12, whatever. The whole time I was growing up, he would spend Saturdays. Saturday morning he would go work bees and then come back and we'd do whatever Saturday afternoon. But it's always been there. But they have never. Dad would bring me along, so he would. I always wanted to go to the one specific bee yard, Pine Log, because he would let me drive out, and I was like, I couldn't even see over the steering wheel, and he would let me drive out. So that's where I learned to drive, and I would go just so I could drive out of the bee yard and drive up to the road. So that's how he got me in the bee yard, and I started, I would go out there and help him out until I got stung, and then I'd go sit in the truck. Or, go swing a stick at a tree or something.
You're probably 100% immune to bee venom now because you've been getting stung since the time you were born, basically.
I don't know. If they get me in the eyes, I'll swell shut.
Yeah.
I tell people it still hurts just as bad.
It does,
It doesn't swell up, but it still hurts just as bad every time. Surprises me just as much.
Yeah, I had a truck driver told me that when I first started. We were loading some hives on the semi, and I was like, man, he's been doing it for so many years. I was like, does it hurt anymore? He's like, yeah, it still hurts. Were you stupid or something? And I was like, well, okay.
It never stops hurting.
No, I haven't. It's more of like, it becomes a familiar pain, I think. You're like, it hurts, but I feel that all day, every day. Okay, and kind of can ignore it. Unless they get you in the ear or something, or, back of the knee or some weird spot.
Right on the end of the nose, you'll be sneezing for the next hour.
Which is the best sinus relief. If they could sell that in like a pharmacy or something, just inject little bee venom into your sinuses, clean you out instantly. Like, forget nasal spray. You can definitely do the bee venom.
But yeah, as far as the kid, Clay, we were fortunate enough to move to the honey house, basically, right next door. So we are there. So it's. I feel like I get to see him more than people with a real job get to see their kids because he's just, I'm within a couple 100 yards of him at all times, and that's nice. Especially now, he'll walk. He'll come outside and walk around and watch me and yell and throw rocks in the pond or whatever. But it's nice to have them all right there. It makes things a lot easier. If we were living, miles away, and I was working somewhere else, it would be different. But it's nice having everything right there. It's just a big homestead, I guess.
You have one of those little kid bee suits? I see those online all the time.
No, I haven't got him a bee suit yet.
Oh,
we're gonna wait till he can actually get something done.
I would have paid for the suit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess kids grow so fast too. You buy them $100, $200 suit. I don't know how much those things are, and they grow out of it in a few months or something.
Yeah.
And I guess not.
He'll get there.
Pretty cool. Did your grandfather find a way to handle those tracheal mites that were getting so bad?
I'm not really sure how that ended up. I mean, the industry figured it out, but he was I think one of the first people to kind of blow the whistle on, hey, something's going on, and he he donated a lot of time and effort into research of what was going on. So he was, before he was even in inspection, he was kind of doing that kind of work, trying to prevent spread of disease or pests.
Definitely, like the buckfast genetics seem to be naturally resistant,
Right.
and a lot of people use the thymol apigard.
Yeah.
Seems to work, but yeah, I guess you can't really detect the symptoms so well unless you send them to a lab, right?
Right. Or yeah, figure out how to work a microscope and do it yourself. But they're not as big of a problem as varroa mites for sure anymore. And I don't know if, like you said, the varroa mite treatment will kind of hit the tracheal mites too. A lot of people mix thymol into their special concoctions to
Oh yeah,
hit that
give it a little extra boost.
I've heard that.
I've heard all kinds of stuff. I mean, beekeepers will put anything in a hive to try to kill the mites.
Yes, they will.
I tried mixing. I never used the brand name Apigard, but I mixed my own. I bought like thymol crystals, and I think I mixed it with like Crisco and sugar.
Right.
And what did I do? I think I put it on index cards or something and stuck it under the lid. And I had like 100 nukes at the house or something. And I remember Steve telling me, he's like, whatever recipe you see, whether it's on the Apigard label or you see it online, he's like, find the minimum dose and then cut it in half, to test the stuff because it's so strong, especially in our hot environment.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, whatever. I think I did err on the minimum side, but I thought I knew better, so probably didn't put as little as I should, and I hit all those nukes. And I came back in the morning, I put it in. I came back, and this was like middle of the summer. It's 90 plus degrees, maybe 100, real feel. And as soon as I stepped in the bee yard, all I could smell was like Listerine. And I was like, what is going on? Like, it just smells like pure mouthwash out here because thymol's an ingredient, in the Listerine mouthwash. And I'm not exaggerating. Every single bee and all 100 of those nukes were on the outside of the nuke box, just hanging out. You couldn't see. I use those white plastic Easy Nukes. You couldn't see any white. You could just see the bees covering it. And I remember opening the lid up, and the poor little queen was just kind of running around on the brood nest by herself,
probably
pretty much.
Coughing.
Yeah, dying. It was horrible. And I ended up leaving it kind of as a test to see if it would kill the hives, and it didn't. As it kind of dissipated, they slowly went back in the hive. They did, yeah. But most of them, they didn't want to go anywhere near that thymol mixture. What they did is, and I scooped it with like this little mini like ice cream scoop, that makes the little balls. They completely propolised it. Like, it looked like if you dipped like vanilla ice cream cone, in like that hard shell chocolate syrup. And it was just completely sealed off. They didn't want to mess with it.
Yeah.
And
I was... how they'll do that.
It is, yeah. I was so terrified. I was like, I'm never messing with this stuff again. And, of course, I was just in the barn mixing some random chemical because I thought it would kill some mites. And, this year we did mix in some, like, buckfast genetics to try to hopefully get some resistance because somebody told me they were seeing them a little bit. I don't know if it was one of the bee inspectors, maybe Jimmy or Jeff or something, said they were seeing some small levels of the tracheal mites. So I freaked out, and we mixed in the buckfast genetics, which... Again, like you said, unless you've got a high-powered microscope or you send samples to the lab, it's hard to tell.
Right.
So it's hard to keep up with just normal varroa mite washes. Honestly, sometimes you're in the bee yard and you're like, okay, well, ready to go. Okay, oh crap, I need to go do 3 to 5 washes or whatever, in the yard. And you're like, oh.
It's easy to just get in the truck and leave.
It's really easy, and just write a bunch of zeros on your paper. Oh, today was no mites today.
Good day.
You can't find them if you don't look for them. Till the hives start dying on you. So that's a dangerous recipe there. Oh.
Yep. I've been guilty of that myself. But you got to stay on top of those mites, man.
Yeah, that's super important. That's what everybody. I remember when I first started. That's what Steve always told me. He was trying to like break down beekeeping and like the top 10 things and he was like, I remember he gave me some list. I have no idea what it was. He's like, scratch that list. There's only 3 things you need to know, and it's varroa, and that stuck in my brain, and always, and that is probably true because a lot of people don't, or they don't want to do the alcohol wash because they don't want to kill the bees and stuff.
Yeah, they can have the best nutrition in the world, but if they've got varroa mites, they are not going to last long. Or even if they do last long, they're not going to be very productive.
Yeah.
they're not gonna make any money.
That's why I heard a lot of the wild hives pretty much have just gone out because they can't survive more than a year or so because the viral load becomes too high on them.
And I think that anything wild at this point has been domesticated. I mean, they came out of one of our boxes somewhere. They've swarmed in the spring, and they'll live for maybe a year and die off. But
how do you think about? Because I remember we bought some queen cells from you. What was it, last year? I think, and some of them are still kicking, because I marked them with yellow, which I think was last year's color. Actually, I saw one yesterday. I was pulling some larvae to go graft from.
Really?
It was one of your yellow queens from the cells, because I remember all that batch I marked specifically yellow, and I had to kind of remark them, because the colors were fading. So it's
still doing good.
Yeah, she's hanging in there. I mean, she's doing fine compared to us coming out of the dearth and everything recently.
Yeah.
Now, I'm hoping the pollen will kick them back out. And we try to requeen every year, but I still see some random yellow queens running around. So that's a good review for Ryan Cuts' queen cells. Yeah. They're hanging in there.
Some of them will.
So you took some from, but you said those had some hygienic genetics, right?
So basically, I just looked. I'm not huge into this genetics. I pick basically my best hives to breed from, and I look at number one, how hygienic they are. Number two, how much honey do they make? Basically, that's my main two. How are they going to keep the hive clean? Because I'm not sure if there's any science behind it, but the thought is that they're going to chew mites off, or possibly at least keep the hive clean. So that's what we go for. We just go for the best producers, and then I'll buy 100 queens a year just to kind of keep my genetics straight, keep from inbreeding so bad. But a lot of your genetics are coming from your drones anyways.
Yeah.
So you're gonna keep it's a natural way to keep them from inbreeding.
Do you think we have any real risk of inbreeding around here? Because there's so many beekeepers, There's
yeah,
you and me, and there's Kirk, and I'm sure there's 100 other people.
I don't see a big problem. I don't think, what am I to say? We may all end up with one three-legged bees next year.
Honestly, I wouldn't even really know what to look for in inbreeding for the bees. I've always heard about it, but I've never, because we've done the same. We'll buy different queens, and we used to catch swarms, and everywhere I would work, and I'm always seems to be. I'm pretty sure I'm within flight range of a lot of like Kirk's yards. I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm sure I'm getting his drones, and not really worried. And I imagine going to California too. That is, I'm getting mixed with how many hives are out there within flight range of my hives that are sitting out there.
Yep.
Probably hundreds, thousands, which is a good and bad thing, maybe.
Definitely thousands.
Yeah.
Tens of thousands.
Oof. That's what we always like to put the apivar strips in going over there, because I'm so terrified that it's just like an all-you-can-eat buffet for those varroa mice. They're like, oh, wow, look at all these bees, and they're all got to do is just jump, and we're going to hit 100 hives.
Yeah.
And that's kind of scary, for sure, which, the few times I've been able to do a mite watch when they come back, they've been on low levels, but I always hit them before they go, and I have the apivar strip while they're gone, and
right.
I hold my breath, cross my fingers, and that's it. I don't know. I think some of it too depends on your broker and everything. I think as far as them coming back healthy, we've been sending them with Tyler Walker, and we know him, so he's a good beekeeper, and he's been really great. And ever since I started sending with him, even if we send a whole semi, maybe like 10 are dead when they come back, and the rest are usually banging. They're usually doing really good.
Yeah.
He
goes out there too, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
Yeah, he does, and I think his brother-in-law does, and I know his father-in-law did, although I know they got out recently of the business.
Yeah.
So they always took care of them. My boxes weren't smashed when they came back, or I didn't have broken pallets or nothing.
Yeah.
I've seen them before with different companies. Sometimes you'll have boxes, and you can just have two giant holes in the front where the forklift stabbed them with the forks.
Right.
Ran them right through the beehives, and I'm like, okay, maybe it happened once, but there's like 4 pallets.
What?
It's a lot. Yeah, it happens, which I think some people were just go, and I think some of those brokers, they're just managing so many hives and so many beekeepers.
Yeah.
It's just maybe they're stretched a little thin too, which I I know the feeling being over here, certainly being stretched thin.
Definitely happens. I want to ask you, what's like your goal? What's your vision for the podcast?
Well, I'm still trying to iron it out, but my hope is to be able to interview, at least starting out, local beekeepers like yourself, especially beekeepers who've got maybe like a unique spin on something, like you being a fifth generation. I've got another guy that kind of specializes in bee clubs. I'm going to talk to Tyler Walker here hopefully soon, and he's going to talk about almond pollination and what it's like being a broker for almonds, things like that. And I'm open to even like interviewing some hobby beekeepers. I would love to hear like a hobby perspective and what they want to hear and what they want to know, and basically be able to educate people. I think is the most. And I mean, as well as I do, this saying has many sayings, but there's that saying that if you ask 10 beekeepers one question, you get 11 different answers.
Oh yeah, at least.
Yeah, at least. And I've heard that in so many different formats too. But that's totally true because beekeeping's so flexible and so variable.
Right.
There's a million ways to do it. Like you not going to almonds because you can do the whole tie and everything. It's just a different way to do it than I'm able to do it in my situation. And I think there's just so many different perspectives that if I can bring in a lot of people and hear their perspectives and share that information, then people can take that and make their own decisions.
Right.
And I found that the internet and YouTube are kind of okay sometimes, but they're not really good to lean on completely. And I think it's best, of course, to lean on like local beekeepers. They're going to have the best from people who've been doing it for a long time, and especially commercial beekeepers, because I've heard some hobbyists kind of say, oh, well, commercial beekeepers don't really love their bees that much. They're just trying to get every little dollar out of them, and we pump corn syrup to them, and we throw in all these chemicals, and we ship them across the country and all these things. But my reputation to that is, nobody loves their bees more than the guy or girl that's doing it to put a roof over their heads and provide for their family.
Yeah.
I cry. When I flip a hive up, I tear up. I nearly do cry because it's sad. It hurts me. Yeah, from a financial perspective. But, I poured my heart, my soul, and all my passion into that and spent a lot of time creating it. You damage your body. You're out there absorbing who knows how much UV rays. We're all going to die of skin cancer down here in Florida for sure, from being in the bee yard all day. It's just, and like you said, some years are really tough. And a lot of years you're barely making it. And you start wholesaling your honey to these huge companies. And sometimes they don't even pay you enough for the honey to cover the sugar that you got to feed them to get them through the year.
Yeah,
and it's tough, and so I think commercial beekeepers, maybe there are some that don't care and they just see bees as some way to make money. I've never felt that way. I care a lot, and I'm sure you do too.
Absolutely.
I felt that way. Your family's really into it. Like your family taught me a lot. Every time I've run into your grandfather and your father and you helped me do better with the queen cells this year.
Good.
I was terrible at grafting. I always tell people in the years prior, I would graft 200 larvae and get 10 cells. I was terrible. And then that one day I went over there to your place for an hour or two?
Yeah.
You showed me your method, and then I instantly started getting 50%, and some days I get as good as 90% on my takes. Good. And it happened right after I went over there and just saw your method. So, that was a huge boon to us because then we started selling, unfortunately, maybe with some competition to you, but we started selling queen cells too, which was a good income source and raising our own. So I think it's good to be able to help people and to share information. And I know some beekeepers, they tend to be a little secretive,
Yeah.
And I hate that. I mean, I get that you've got to have a business and that some competition is probably healthy. Maybe you do have some secret recipe, but you don't want to give it up because, I don't know, maybe you go bankrupt or something.
Scarcity mindset.
Yeah.
There's enough for everybody.
That's what I feel like. Yeah, absolutely. And then usually most beekeepers I've talked to, if you have a respectful conversation with them, hey man, you're a little close to my hives or whatever, usually you can work things out if you're on good terms with them.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. That was a long way of saying is that I want the podcast to kind of be able to educate people and share things.
Cool.
And the interviews are half of it, and I also hope to maybe just do some breaking down scientific studies and stuff, like in the American Bee Journal, or maybe if Randy Oliver has a really cool thing he's posting, I can kind of break that down and just do little episodes like that to teach people too, and like beekeeping news. So yeah, that's the goal. and hopefully it'll turn out well. I mean,
cool.
like I said, you're my guinea pig. So,
Hey. Well, I appreciate you having me, dude.
do you want to plug like your anything? You got a website, Facebook?
Yeah, we do Facebook. I try to just stay below the radar and kind of do my own thing. But yeah, we do Facebook. I just sell honey out the back door, basically cottage food type deal.
Mm-hmm.
We don't do a whole lot of retail stuff like that, but we'll definitely sell Tupelo honey to the community and try to keep beekeepers happy too if they want nukes or whatever. But yeah, check us out on Facebook at Cuts Honey. Maybe I'll answer a message eventually. If you want me to respond, text me or call me, because Facebook is not my forte.
Well, thank you so much for coming, and hopefully we'll have this thing online here pretty soon.
Thanks for having me, man. It's been fun.
Yeah.
It's been fun.
Thanks. Thank you so much for joining us today on the Pollination Podcast. I'm Matthew Walker from Walk in the Woods Apiary. We hope we have answered a few of your beekeeping and pollinator questions. Please share your questions and comments to our Facebook page at the Pollination Podcast.